Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Lora Cecere.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. My name is Lora Cecere. I'm the founder of Supply Chain Insights, and today I'm interviewing Trevor Miles, who's now at Celonis. For many people, you know Trevor. He's a thought leader in the industry. He's worked at I2 Technologies and Kinaxis and spent a little time in SAP and has worked with me on the network and networks. And I want to welcome Trevor to the show to talk about what he's doing today in process automation with Celonis. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Laura. Thank you.
Tell the group a little bit about yourself and your movement to Celonis and what Celonis does.
Okay, so I've been a bit of a wanderer in the sense of living in many places. My wife is from Germany. I'm originally from South Africa, and we met in the US. Our kids were all born in the UK. I first worked for I2 in Belgium, then the US, and moved around. We've been in Canada, very happy in Canada for 15 years, but now we're empty nesters. So we're looking to kind of rediscover our European roots, as it were. And what can I say? Portugal has lovely weather, lovely food. It's close to many other places. So this was a key decision. Associated with that was also work-wise. Celonis is based in Munich, and obviously Munich's a lot closer to Lisbon. Lisbon's a lot closer to Munich than Toronto is. So this makes life a little bit easier from a work perspective as well. Well, Celonis is growing very, very quickly. They were only formed about 5-10 years ago by a group of students at the Technical University of Munich. Since then, they've been growing around about 200 to 300% a year. Now, about 800 people. They have an evaluation of well over 2 billion. Lots of recent investment from very important people. So it's been a fantastic journey to see and observe, and to be quite honest, I knew very little about them about this time of last year. They don't really touch supply chain, or haven't up to now. So it was with some surprise when I saw some key people that I knew moving to Celonis, and one of them invited me to join Celonis. So part of the interview process, actually, Laura, was to talk to some customers. And customers doing really important things in supply chain. And I've been absolutely staggered by how much some of the customers are doing already in supply chain. So this was a key decision point for me, especially as many of the customers, what they described is Celonis has helped them greatly with the analysis, so understanding their current state. But they were very keen on moving with Celonis to operational applications, which means making decisions at an operational level using Celonis rather than understanding how they've been performing. So those two are opposite sides of the same coin, but this was really a driver for me to join them.
Well, thanks for the explanation, because Trevor, when I talk to people about Celonis, they're like, how do you spell it? They've not heard about it. And it's sort of a missionary sell because, we've automated transactional systems. We've had decision support for advanced planning that's grown up around theory of constraints. We've talked about lean and flow, but we've really not automated it. And you talk about this concept of friction, friction around customers, friction around order to cash, friction around manufacturing. How would people use your solution? And can you give me some case studies or kind of tidbits about use cases?
Yes. So, I can't, for confidentiality reasons, reveal too many of the actual names of customers. I mean, in the sense of their use cases, there are a few that are published on the internet. But I wanted to give you a more broad sort of description. So first of all, customer list includes ABB, BMW, GSK. There are lots of large customers who have decided to do process mining, as it's called, using Celonis. So the question is, what is process mining? So as you stated, there's been over the last 30, 40 years a very large deployment of solutions within organizations. And in that process of deployment and use, people leave digital footprints. So what Celonis does is go in and look at all of those digital footprints and see how processes are actually performed. Because you know how systems get deployed, a group of people sit down and they decide what the perfect process is, and they go into an ERP system and configure it and all of this type of stuff. But then once it's in, the ERP is up and running, everybody exports data to Excel and then goes massages the data in Excel and brings it back into the ERP. So the key question is, how is the process actually being performed? And there are two aspects to that question. One is, what is the flow of information or materials through the organization? And the other one is the effectiveness or efficiency of performing those processes. So process mining can actually surface both. We know in the supply chain that master data, kind of the MRP and the routings and all of this, the bill of materials and the routings kind of describe what you think you're going to make and where you're going to make it and how long it's going to take and all of this type of stuff. Well, we go and look at all of the transactional history and work out whether the material actually flowed in that direction, whether you actually sourced from certain suppliers, and in the proportion that you'd anticipated, whether the items cost as much as you thought they were going to cost. So all of this information can come through in process mining. Now, a key part of it that would be different from, say, a BI tool is the flow. So one of our customers has actually discovered that in a case where they have 3 ERP systems and supposedly some approved flow of materials in the pharmaceutical supply chain, that in fact that's not how the materials were flowing, that they were flowing in a non-compliant fashion. Now, of course, this is a big problem for a pharmaceutical company because of the fines and the liability associated with it. But this was very difficult to detect because everything seemed to be correct in the master data. So we do some smart matching of material flows and all of this, and this is how we could detect the true movement of materials versus the assumed movement of materials. So that's one side. The other one would be, what's your throughput? What did it actually cost? How long did it actually take you to perform those tasks? And the last one would be, how did you perform the task? Because I talked about material flow, but the same thing could be true, for example, order to cash, where in one key example we have come up with is, how long does it, or how many orders are forced to go through credit checks? And in one particular customer's case, 80% of all orders were going through credit checks, leading to very long processes before the order was approved, meaning that the material was actually delivered late. So through the analysis, they worked out that they only needed to actually send 5% of these orders through the credit check, considerably improving the on-time delivery rate. So, many of the examples that we would go through, because this is where Celonis is focused up to now, are adjacent to supply chain, particularly in order to cash and procure to pay, which are more financial processes than pure supply chain processes, but touch on that. But as I said, many of the customers were very interested or have already started a lot of activities. One of them is looking at a paint shop and connected Celonis into the MES, and within 10 minutes can identify quality issues on the paint line and redirect manufacturing to improve those problems. And those problems could be quality, it could be throughput, it could be many of the problems, but within 10 minutes of analyzing the actual movement of materials through the supply chain or the manufacturing process, in that case, identify where friction needs to be removed. So you use the term friction. The last thing I just want to pick up here, how it relates directly to supply chain. Whenever we run an MRP or we run an APS or we run any of these other tools, a key thing that we do is extract data from master data. So the question is, how accurate is that master data? And I want to pick up on two aspects of accuracy. One would be, the average, because let's face it, when you've only got one number, you typically pick the average. But the other one is variability. So one question would be, so how far off is the average from what you've got in your ERP system? And I can tell you that one particular case, working with a customer, they thought a key component's delivery lead time was 5 days, and we showed them that in the last 2 years, they'd never had a delivery lead time that was much under 13 days. So every time they issue a purchase order, they buy in the material late. And guess what that means? Excess expedites and all of this to try and get the materials on time. The other important point is, I said, in most of the cases, it was around 13 days. Well, how variable is it? Because that variability is a direct driver of how much inventory you need, etc. So being able to reduce the variability has a massive impact on your supply chain in terms of the amount of inventory you need, how much buffer capacity you need, all of these types of things. So I would say that in most cases, when we've just been able to surface the variability of the different KPIs we've been measuring for our customers, they've been staggered at just what that looks like, because most people in supply chain understand immediately, maybe from lean principles, Kaizen, whatever it is, that variability is a key driver of cost and poor performance in supply chain. So these are some things that people can start with immediately in using Celonis to do. And then as we build in out solutions to then connect the processes, because, a key thing I keep on saying to people, there's a good reason why the word chain is in supply chain. It's a bunch of interconnected processes, which gets us to flow. It's no good just optimizing one process, because this might have an impact elsewhere. Of course, it's better than not optimizing that process, but you might not be optimizing the place that's causing you most friction. So a key part for us is to identify those highest areas of friction, and the friction might not be in the actual process, but the impact that process has elsewhere, and therefore link those processes and create much more flow. So smooth movement of material through the supply chain is the key to me.
So I love the idea of automating flow and friction, and I want to encourage you, Trevor, to come back and let's talk about as you adapt and move forward with more use cases. I wish you the best. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.